Let's try this for the third time. Vimes stood back. Okay, why haven't you told the lads? Things are moving, that's why. It's all starting, said Ned. Who you are doesn't matter anymore, but you're going to get the lads killed. They'd have been on our side if it wasn't for you. I was working on 'em. You know Spatchcock always drops his sword on his foot, and Nancy Ball wets himself when he's threatened, and Vimesy is simple, and now you're going to stick 'em all right in the middle and they're going to die, and all for no reason. Why haven't you told them? Vimes repeated. Maybe you've got friends in high places, Ned snarled. Vimes glanced up at the rooftops. Have we finished? Said Ned. Gimme your badge, said Vimes. You what? You're quitting. Fair enough. Give me your badge. Coates recoiled as if he'd been stung. Blow that. Then leave the city, said Vimes. It'll be good. It'll be for your own good. Is that a threat? Not from me, but here's some advice, boy. Don't put your trust in revolutions. They always come around again. That's why they're called revolutions. People die, and nothing changes. I'll see you later. He turned his back and hurried away so that the man wouldn't see his face. Okay, now it was time. It had to be now, or he'd burst like Mr. Salsiferous. He had wanted to do this, hadn't dared try it, because those monks could probably do a man a lot of no good if he crossed them, but it had all gone too far now. A sense of duty told him there was an officer waiting to see him. He overruled it. It was not in possession of all the facts. Vimes reached the entrance of the watch-house and stopped. He shut his eyes. If anyone had bothered to look at him, they'd have seen a man apparently trying to grind 2 cigarette stubs into the road, one with each foot. He thought with the brains in his feet. As young Sam had noticed, the feet had a memory of their own. Rounded cat-head cobbles, the usual kind. They hadn't been well set in this part of the city, and moved very slightly underfoot. Then twice before getting to the watch-house his feet had felt larger cobbles, narrow bands of them where the road surface had been replaced after drains had been laid, and before that there had been a similar band, but of soft brick rubble, so crushed by cartwheels that it was practically a gully. A few dozen steps before that they'd twirled him around a few times, but the last surface before that had been mud. Vimes, who had been walking with his eyes shut, bumped into a cart. Mud, he thought, getting up and ignoring the strange looks of passers-by. That meant an alley. Let's see. Ah, yes, over there. It took 20 minutes. People turned as he walked through the streets, closing his eyes when he dared, so that his feet could see better. Sometimes he did look around, though, and there it was again, the thunderstorm sensation of tensions building up, waiting for the first little thing. People were uneasy. The herd was restless, and they didn't quite know why. Everyone he looked at returned his gaze blankly. He stepped onward. Rough flagstones between 2 stretches of the ancient cobbles they called troll-heads. The only place where you got those in this part of the city was here, in where Pewter Street crossed Elm, and before that it had been... big stones, some of the most ancient in the city, rutted by hundreds and hundreds of years of iron-bound cartwheels. That was the road that had been right behind a city wall. Yes, he crossed the pits, still on Elm, and then lost his thread. A metal grating on the pavement gave it back to him. Cellar grating. Cool cellar. Coat of arms on it worn down. Butter market. Yeah. Go feet. The monks had turned him around here, but long bricks, hard-fired in the kiln, and a stretch of quite modern flagstones, well-dressed and fitted. It could trick you if you didn't know you were in... Mason's Road, and there were masons here, and they looked after the surface. Now find an alley. Mud, but with a lot of gravel in it, because the stonemasons dumped their waste here. But this one had occasional hummocks across it where pipes had been laid. Now find square head cobbles. He opened his eyes. Away on his left was a block of 3 buildings, a temple sandwiched between 2 cheap-jack corner shops. It was just a temple, slightly foreign-looking, but weren't they all? It looked high Hublandish, where everyone lived on yaks or something. The temple doors were locked. He rattled the handle impotently, and then hammered on the woodwork with his sword. It had no effect. He didn't even leave a mark on the wood. But the door of the shonky shop next door was open. It was a familiar place. Once upon a time it was his tailor and bootmaker, and, like a pawn shop, a shonky shop was always open. Vimes stepped inside and was immediately enveloped in a dusty darkness. It was a cave of cloth. Racks of old suits hung from the ceiling. Ancient shelves bent under piles of shirts and vests and socks. Here and there old boxes loomed in the gloom and caught his knees. Piles of derelict boots slipped and slid under his feet. And there was the smell. If poverty had a smell, this was it. If humbled pride had a smell, this was it. And there was a touch of disinfectant as well. Within a few feet of the door, Vimes was already lost. He turned and shoved his way through the grey aisle after grey aisle of suffocating cloth and wondered if anyone had ever died in here and how anyone would ever find out. He pulled aside a hanger containing a greasy, threadbare suit. "You want?" He turned. There was no one there until his gaze fell slightly and met that of a small, glossy little man, totally bald, very small and thin, and wearing some vague clothing that presumably even a shonky shop hadn't been able to unload on a customer. Who was he? Who was he? Surprisingly, the name seemed quite fresh in the memory. Yeah, Mr. Shine?" "Soonshine's son," said Mr. Sun. He grabbed the suit Vimes was still holding. Good eye, lovely cloth, owned by priest, very good, 50 pence to you, shame to sell it, times are hard." Vimes hastily put the suit back on the rack and pulled out his badge. Sun glared at it. "I pay already other copper," he said. $1, 1 month, no trouble, already I pay other copper." "Pay," said Vimes. "2-stripe copper, already I pay, $1, 1 month, no trouble." "Corporal Quirk," muttered Vimes. "You don't have to pay coppers, Mr. Sun. We're here for your protection." Despite his barely basic grasp of the language, Mr. Sun's expression suggested very clearly that the 3-stripe 1-crown copper in front of him had dropped in from Planet Idiot. "Look, I haven't got time for this," said Vimes. "Where's the back door? This is watch business." I pay protection, 1 month, no trouble." Vimes grunted and set off along another narrow, cloth-lined tunnel. A glint of glass caught his eye, and he sidled crabwise up a choked aisle until he found a counter. It was piled with more hopeless merchandise, but there was a bead-curtained doorway behind it. He half-clambered, half-swam over the piles and scrambled into a tiny room beyond. Mr. Sun pushed his way to an ancient tailor's dummy. It was so scratched, chipped, and battered it looked like something dug up from the volcanic ash of an ancient city. He pulled on an arm, and the eyes lit up. "Number 3 here," he said into its ear. "He's just gone through, and boy is he angry." The back door was locked, but yielded under the weight of Vimes's body. He staggered into the yard, looked up at the wall separating this greasy space from the temple's garden, jumped, scrabbled his boots on the brickwork, and dragged himself onto the wall, feeling a couple of bricks crumble away underneath him. He landed on his back and looked up at a thin-robed figure sitting on a stone seat. "Cup of tea, Commander," said Sweeper cheerfully. "I don't want any damn tea," growled Vimes, struggling to his feet. Sweeper dropped a lump of rancid yak butter into the tea bowl beside him. "What do you want then, Mr. Vimes with the very helpful feet?" "I can't deal with this. You know what I mean." "You know, some tea really would calm you down," said Sweeper. "Don't tell me to be calm. When are you going to get me home?" A figure appeared next to Vimes. It was taller, heavier man than Sweeper, white-haired, and with a look of a good-natured bank manager about him. He held out a cup. Vimes hesitated a moment, then took the cup and poured the tea onto the ground. "I don't trust you," he said. "There could be anything in this." "I can't imagine what we could put in tea that would make it any worse than the way you normally drink it," said Sweeper calmly. "Sit down, Your Grace. Please." Vimes sagged onto the seat. The rage that had been driving him sank a little too, but he could feel it bubbling. Automatically he pulled out a half-smoked cigar and put it in his mouth. "Sweeper said you'd find us. "Some way or other," said the other monk. "So much for secrecy." "Why should you worry?" said Vimes bitterly. "Can't you just play around with time and it won't have happened?" "We don't intend to do that," said Sweeper. "What could I do anyway? Go around telling everyone that these loony monks you see in the street are some kind of time shifters? I'd get locked up." "This is Q," said Sweeper, nodding to the other monk. "When the time comes, he'll get you back. But not yet." Vimes sighed. The anger had drained, leaving only a hopeless leaden feeling. He stared blankly at the strange rockery that occupied most of the garden. It looked oddly familiar. He blinked. "I've been talking to people today who are going to die," he said. "How do you think that makes me feel? Do you know what that feels like?" The monks gave him a puzzled look. Yes," said Q. "We do," said Sweeper. "Everyone we talk to is going to die. Everyone you talk to is going to die. Everyone dies." "I've been changing things," said Vimes. "Why shouldn't I? Casa is. I have no idea how things are going to turn out. I mean, doesn't it change history even if you just tread on an ant?" "For the ant, certainly," said Q. Sweeper waved a hand. "I told you, Mr. Vimes. History finds a way. It's like a shipwreck. You're swimming to the shore. The waves will break whatever you do. Is it not written? The big sea does not care the way the little fishes swim. People die in their due time. Keel didn't. Casa mugged the poor devil." "His due time in this present, Commander," said Q. "But he will play his part in the other, Mr. Vimes. Eventually, you'll reach the shore. You must. Otherwise—" "There is no shore," said Sweeper. "No," said Vimes. "There's got to be more. I'm not swimming. I'm drowning. It was fun, do you know? At first, like a boys' night out, feeling the street under my boots again. But now, what about Sybil? Are my memories real? What I know is she's a girl living with her dad. Is there somewhere where she's my wife, having my child? I mean, really? Is it all in my mind? Can you prove it? Is it happening? Will it happen? What's real?" The monks were silent. Sweeper glanced at Q, who shrugged. He glanced rather more meaningfully, and this time Q made that dismissive little wave of the hand, which is someone meaning, all right, against my better judgment. Then Sweeper said, "Yes," very slowly. "Yes, I think we can help, Commander. You want to know there's a future waiting. You want to hold it in your hand. You want to feel the weight of it. You want one point to navigate by, one point to steer for. Yes, I think we can help you there. But—" "Yes." "You climb back over that wall and Sergeant Keel plays his part. He sees it through to the end. He gives the orders he feels are right, and they will be the right orders. He holds the line. He does the job." "He's not the only one," said Vimes. "Yes, Commander Vimes has a job in hand, too." "Don't worry, I'm not leaving Casa behind," growled Vimes. "Good, we'll be in touch." Vimes tossed the stump of his cigar aside and looked up at the wall. "All right," he said, "I'll see it through, but when the time comes—" "We will be ready," said Sweeper, "just so long as you—" He stopped. There was another subtle sound, scaly in its way, a sort of silicon slither. "My goodness," said Q. Vimes looked down. The cigar butt still smouldered, but around it the garden of inner-city tranquillity was moving, pebble sliding over tiny pebble. A large water-rounded rock floated gently around, spinning, and then Vimes became aware of the whole garden was spinning, turning on the little wisp of smoke. A spent match sailed past, rolling from stone to stone like a scrap of food passed from ant to ant. "Is it meant to do that?" he said. "In theory, yes," said Sweeper. "I should leave right now, Mr. Vimes." Vimes took one last look at the moving garden, shrugged, and then heaved himself over the wall. The two monks stared. The tide of little stones was gently pushing the stub into the centre. "Astonishing," said Q. "I don't know how you manage it." "I'm not doing it," said Sweeper. "Q, can we—" "No more time-shifting," said Q. "It's caused enough trouble." "Fair enough," said Sweeper. "Then I'll need to send out search parties. The fences, the bent jewellers, the pawn-shops. We'll find it. I understand our friend. The job's not enough. He needs one real thing. and I know what it is." They looked again at the turning, shifting garden, and felt the fingers of history spreading out and into the world. And that, in 3 parts, was section 15, and hopefully we will get section 16 to you really soon and catch up. Okay, bye.